I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dedication and contribution to the improvement of American unity between races led to a decrease in oppression and a rise in an integrated nation. His most influential and impactful methods were peace marches, sit-ins, and his famous speeches that spoke to more than just the discouraged, but also to the people as a whole, which inspired change. The crowds of 250,000 people proved the truth in his effective statements as he changed the world one speech at a time. His most famous speech, the I Have a Dream speech, communicated a message of hope for the future of America and how those dreams could be reached by the people together. The goals of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech were secure freedom from injustice, the guarantee of inalienable rights for all citizens, and the end of segregation. These goals were fulfilled during the progression of the nation's history because the inspiration for change led to the passing of civil rights acts and new laws that established and promoted equality. Injustice plagued American history for centuries leading up to the civil rights movement as the African American race was forced to endure hardship under the supposed superiority of the white race. Through slavery, separation, and abuse, the African Americans survived the horror of their past and used Martin Luther King's sense of hope to speak out against the ongoing lack of fairness between races. By making the races equal instead of divided by power, freedom would be guaranteed to all without a partition.
With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s goal for unalienable rights for all citizens were achieved through different strategies and ideas. King used a philosophy of rejection toward the idea that progress can come through negotiations or the use of courts. He urged the thought that using large masses of people would make more progress for equality amongst one another. King was willing to obey the law to stand up for something that was morally right for all people. Despite his willingness to disobey the law, he was still undeniably against violence. King was angered and blamed by his own people when they attempted to use violence to succeed in what they wanted. He reflected that he was a nonviolent person, and he felt responsible for other African American actions. 3 months after the death of Martin Luther King Jr., the Civil Rights Bill of 1968 was passed. This bill is known to be a follow-up of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 and is also known as the Fair Housing Bill. The bill said that it is prohibited to discriminate when someone is trying to purchase a home. Although there was not a lot of accomplishment coming out of this bill, it was still a step toward racial equality and equal rights for all people, not just the whites. Segregation was a major setback for African Americans before Martin Luther King Jr. made his infamous I Have a Dream speech. Using civil disobedience, King encouraged the African American community to fight against segregation and to fight for the civil rights. This persistence led to him actually giving his speech in Washington. Shortly after he gave it, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed in the United States. The act outlawed all discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This goal of ending segregation was fulfilled through the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because it helped end discrimination toward all human beings. King's speech had a long-lasting legacy in America because it sparked for the real change for the civil rights movement for all people, not just African Americans and other minorities who are in need.
The civil rights movement presented a chance for Martin Luther King Jr. to express his commitment and offering to the advancement of the American society through unity and acceptance of different races. He desired to eventually end oppression and build a new country whose standards reflected their documentation for an equal and unbiased nation. Through different approaches, MLK made a difference in the lives of past, present, and future Americans who used his speech to redefine their morals and welcome others. His I Have a Dream speech introduced the imperative idea of encouraging a hope for the future of America and offering solutions. The goals of his I Have a Dream speech were secure freedom from injustice, the guarantee of inalienable rights for all citizens, and the end of segregation. These goals were fulfilled during the progression of the nation's history because of the inspiration for change which led to the passing of civil rights acts and new laws that established and promoted equality.